in this lecture, we will talk about what I called here 3 strategies for happiness and success. These 3 are mindfulness, self-esteem, and strengths. Mindfulness rests on the insight that we only have the present moment to live in. We will look at how meditation is basically just a workout for the brain. And then we will learn about other ways to be more aware and more mindful about what's going on in our lives. The second of these strategies is self-esteem. And self-esteem is the judgment that we place upon ourselves, and it affects almost every aspect of our lives. We'll understand what it means to have high self-esteem and how we can practice it based on the 6 pillars or practices of high self-esteem. And the third class is going to look at strengths, because understanding what we're good at can transform our lives. I will argue that we have an inherent bias towards looking at our weaknesses, and we easily overlook our strengths. So then in more particular, we will look at how character strengths can be identified and used to use their benefits in our lives. How much attention do you pay to the present moment, this very moment in time? If you take a second to notice how much attention you pay or we pay to anything, you will quickly notice that the mind is all over the place. It never sits still. We spend huge amounts of time planning and worrying about the future, and we spend also huge amounts of time thinking about the past, about what happened yesterday and who said what to you, and there's just a plethora of different things that our mind is constantly worrying about. And the present moment gets completely squeezed out among all these occupations, all these things that are going on in our mind. But the present moment at the same time is the only moment that we are ever alive in. The only moment we can ever enjoy something. The only moment that we can experience. And this is what mindfulness is about. The definition of mindfulness is what Jon Kabat-Zinn calls paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. Starting from this definition, and in order to understand mindfulness, we'll now first take a look at the opposite of mindfulness. Because we humans have a usual tendency to sleepwalk through our lives. This mode is what could be described as autopilot. We are very rarely aware of the present moment. We are most of the time on something like an autopilot. Let me give you an example so you get a better understanding of what I mean. You might be familiar with this situation. You drive home from work and you want to stop at the supermarket. But actually, you find yourself with the key in the door before you realize that you were on autopilot all the way home. You were lost in thoughts, maybe thinking about what had happened at work or what will have to be done at home. And the present experience of driving, to the supermarket for that matter, got completely squeezed out, was lost among all the thoughts that you had about work and home or any other scenarios that constantly play out in our minds. That's what's being on autopilot, and that's what's the exact opposite of mindfulness. Let's take a time out together here. Stop the video and take a few minutes to become aware of your current experience, right here and right now. Feel the sense of your body, your feet in contact with the floor, your buttocks on the chair if you're sitting. Feel your head and your shoulders. And maybe, can you feel the movement of your breath somewhere in your body? As I said, stop the video here and pay attention just for a minute or two. This was a first glimpse into mindfulness, a first glimpse into what I mean if I talk about paying attention to the present moment on purpose and without judging it. Jon Kabat-Zinn, the researcher responsible for bringing mindfulness into our field, emphasizes that mindfulness is not simply a technique, but it's a way of being, a way of living that means living in this very moment. But for our purpose, we can look at it also as a skill, because that's what it also is, a skill, and a skill that can be developed. And one of the main tools for developing mindfulness is mindfulness meditation. So in the next part of the class, we'll look at the evidence, the research that's there, that tells us how beneficial mindfulness can be if we apply it to our lives. Research into mindfulness has grown at a tremendous pace. It is proven to be effective from medicine and psychology to education, business and leadership, and in a wide area of other fields, like helping people stop smoking and overcome depression. I said before that the main tool for developing mindfulness is mindfulness meditation. And brain research is producing hard evidence that meditation practice can literally change the way our brain works. Early studies looking at mindfulness have examined Buddhist monks. Those monks are people who practice mindfulness every day from quite early on. And brain scientists found that long-time practitioners showed brain activation on a scale that had never been seen before. Those Buddhist monks were able to generate high amounts of so-called gamma waves in our brain. These gamma waves are important for remembering and for learning. What's more, brain areas that are responsible for our happiness and positive emotions have been found to be much larger than usual. That's when psychologists and neuroscience began to understand that the brain is capable of being trained and physically modified in ways few people can imagine. Remember how neuroscientists used to believe the opposite? Before neuroplasticity was discovered, we thought that connections among brain nerve cells were fixed early in life and did not change throughout the rest of it. But that assumption was proven wrong. Nowadays, we have very convincing evidence that meditation practice can have effects on our brain the same way golf and tennis practice affects our mind and our body. So this may be great for Buddhist monks, but what about normal people? What's in it for us who cannot spend hours meditating every day? There's good news too. And to prove this, we turn to a study that was eye-opening on several levels. Two of the pioneers in the field, their names are Richard Davidson and Jon Kabat-Zinn, went to a big biotechnological company and trained the employees there to practice mindfulness meditation for 8 weeks. And the impact was impressive. First, it showed that just 8 weeks of mindfulness training can significantly decrease people's stress. This finding was important, but it was not all that much surprising, because after all, they called their program mindfulness-based stress reduction. But then, the researchers also took a look at the meditators' brains. Those people who had just been meditating for 8 weeks now had significantly more brain activity in the areas associated with positive emotions. Only 8 weeks. And the most fascinating finding had to do with their immune function. At the end of the 8-week study, all the participants, that means the meditators and the people who have been put on a wait list, the so-called control group, were given flu shots. And what the two researchers found then was that those people who had been meditating for 8 weeks produced significantly more antibodies to the influenza vaccine. That means that after just 8 weeks of mindfulness meditation, the meditators were clearly happier and more resistant to illnesses. That's amazing, only 8 weeks. And in fact, even newer research shows that people meditating for only 3 weeks, 20 minutes per day, already demonstrated some changes in their brains. For researchers, these outcomes were mind-blowing, because even though neuroplasticity was already discovered, nobody thought that we are such in control of the way our brain is working. One of the leading neuroscientists in the world, Professor Richard Davidson, who works very closely with the Dalai Lama, phrased it this way. This positive state is a skill that can be trained. Our findings clearly indicate that meditation can change the function of the brain in an enduring way. And somebody who should really know it phrased it like this. Meditating is like lifting weights or exercising for the mind. Anyone can be happy by simply training their brain. The person who said this was Mathieu Ricard, and he is often labeled as the happiest man alive. These 2 studies that I shared with you and the recent quotes were just a snapshot of some of the research in the last 20 years. Of course, there are hundreds of studies more. What's so remarkable is that mindfulness helps improve everything from attention and brain function to immunity and even skin disease. Yes, studies have even shown that meditation significantly accelerated the healing process of psoriasis, a skin condition. And if you want to get a simple but very thorough explanation of what is really going on in the brain, here is a great explanation of Daniel Siegel. He's the author of the book Mindset and the founder of the discipline Interpersonal Neurobiology. And it's really interesting what he has to say. So I attached a link in the resources to a talk from him. It's about 20 minutes. So if you're interested in that, check it out. It's really informative. He explains how the brain works and how mindfulness influences the brain. And as I just said, he also has a wonderful book called Mindset that I recommend if you want to know more. Now we look at applying mindfulness to our lives. The exercises and practices here are meant to get you started. They are great for beginners, for getting you started to meditate. Advanced meditators may find that the next steps are missing. That's because this is not meant to be a full-fledged mindfulness course. The first exercise that we will start together is called recognizing the unsettled mind. Again, mindfulness is the deliberate intention to observe the activity of our mind in a non-judgmental way, to step back and notice whatever arises in our mind without reacting to it. The starting point for mindfulness is simply noticing what is happening in our minds right now. Let's begin by doing a simple exercise. Sit comfortably with your back straight. For a beginner, a straight back chair is probably best. Once you're sitting comfortably, simply relax and experience being where you are. Feel the pressure of your body resting on the seat and on the ground. Become aware of the space around you. Notice how you naturally become aware of sights, sounds, and other sensory stimuli. Perhaps a certain smell, or maybe a breeze brushing your skin. So this practice is very simple. Just allow yourself to be present, experiencing whatever happens. When you sit and do nothing, decide to sit and do nothing. Let your mind rest in the present moment. And simply be aware of where you are right now. You might want to stop here for a minute to do this exercise on your own. In a surprisingly short time, you may find that you're thinking about something, even though you had decided to do nothing other than notice what occurs in your senses in this moment. When you realize you are thinking, simply bring back your attention Bring it back to the here and now, doing nothing, just observing. Rest assured, you will continue to drift off into random thoughts, worries, daydreams, or ruminations. That's normal. Every time that happens, gently bring back your attention to the here and now, doing nothing. Now that you're done with this exercise, reflect on it. You sat down, relaxed, and decided not to do anything, not to chase your thoughts, and not to get lost in imagination. But despite this decision, you probably found yourself thinking about something. What does this tell you? What does this tell us? It seems that our mind automatically pulls us away from the present moment into thinking. This habit is strong and has the power to override our decision to make progress. This is what Paul Gilbert calls the unsettled mind. And we all have it. Meditation and mindfulness is a way of settling our mind more and of training our mind to be able to live this present moment. Another way to practice mindfulness is mindful breathing. This is the very basic mindfulness meditation exercise that beginners usually start with. The practice looks something like this. You begin by sitting comfortably in a position that enables you to be both alert and relaxed. Start by taking 3 slow deep breaths, and then resume breathing naturally and bring a gentle attention to your breath and the movement of your breath. Tune in to the physical sensation of breathing, not thinking about the breath, but being with it, becoming aware of the in-breath and the out-breath. Again, you will find that your mind wanders off from the breath. This is perfectly normal and not a problem. The mind naturally wanders. Just acknowledge the sensation, thought, or sound, experience it, and very gently let it go. And then bring your attention, again very gently, back to your breathing. You have detailed instructions in the resources. You can do this for any length of time. Start off doing it for just a few minutes, maybe only 2 or 3. When it comes to posture, you can really practice in any posture that you want. This can be sitting, lying down, or even standing or walking on your feet if that feels right for you. But remember that the best meditation posture allows you to be relaxed and alert at the same time. That's the most important thing. You have to be able to be relaxed and alert at the same time. For many people, this means that you have to keep your back straight. Close your eyes or keep them halfway open, whatever feels most appropriate to you. In the resources, you will also find a link to a guided meditation, a 20-minute guided meditation by Jon Kabat-Zinn. He was the researcher responsible for bringing mindfulness into the scientific realm. And it's a very good one, but it's 20 minutes, so you might want to start off doing this very easy practice for a few minutes, and then you will see where it leads you. The third mindfulness exercise that I want to present you is mindful eating. It's a very simple exercise that involves fruit, often a raisin, or maybe if you don't like raisins, a piece of chocolate, or something like that. It involves various steps, and they're also, again, outlined in the additional resources. You can do this exercise for 5 to 10 minutes or even longer if you want. Just try it out and see how it feels for you. In this last part of this class, we want to take a closer look on the challenges that arise when we're trying to establish a mindfulness practice. You may want to practice mindfulness for a few days or a week or 2 before you go through this class. It's up to you. When we set up a mindfulness practice, it helps us to think of it as a mental workout, because that's what it is. Meditation is a mental workout. We cannot stop our mind going off on thoughts that we didn't choose. But when we notice it has gone and deliberately guide it back, that's like exercising a mental muscle. So if your mind wanders like 20 times in the space of 1 minute, then you guide it back 20 times and you have done 20 units of exercise. It's like 20 sit-ups for the mind. So you do not need to worry if your mind wanders many times. Every time you guide it back, you enhance your skill of mindfulness. Also, don't be discouraged by the challenges you face. No matter how difficult your experiences, there are ways to work with them and learn with them. It is incredibly common for people to think that they are bad meditators or that everyone else can do it except them. However, almost everybody faces challenges, and that is why in this class we talk about a list of common mistakes, of common obstacles, and how we can overcome them. Of course, this list is not exhaustive, but it captures many of the common problems. The first of the challenges is restlessness. It's incredibly common to feel restlessness when we start to meditate. We start feeling the need to move. We want to get up and just do something different. Just try to be with this restless feeling without acting on it. Try to experience these feelings and thoughts as what they are, fabrications of the mind. And then settle down a little bit more. Try to feel the present moment a little bit more and try to feel your breath a little bit more. Another interesting one is sleepiness. We often find that meditating reminds us of how sleepy we actually are. If you find yourself drifting into sleep, try if you can be non-judgmental about this too. If it happens too frequently, try to adjust your posture. Try to be in a more upright position, or maybe change the time of your meditation practice. Thirdly, there's boredom. We are so caught up in our usual lives that are full of distractions that it can be hard to take all the distractions away and really be in the present moment. We start to lose interest in just sitting there and doing nothing. So here's your chance to bring curiosity to something that we take so much for granted, that we ignore most of our lives, even though it is the very basis of our lives. Our breath and our breathing. And every breath is different. So try to acknowledge this and bring more curiosity to what's happening in your body, in your mind, if you meditate. Maybe you manage to even bring curiosity to your feelings of boredom and say, that's interesting. So that's the way I feel and think about it. The fourth one is the question, am I doing it wrong? Or what am I doing here? Or when will I finally see results? See if you can let go of these fabrications of your mind and be non-judgmental about your practice. Because this is what mindfulness is. Paying attention on purpose in the present moment and in a non-judgmental way. See if you can drop this commenting voice that's constantly judging us, and see if you can move beyond the relentless judging of good and bad and useful and useless. If you have decided to give mindfulness a try, don't be discouraged and acknowledge that it is not a quick fix. It takes time. If you are in doubt, keep in mind that there is a huge amount of research demonstrating its effectiveness. The fifth one is laziness. It's easy to get too lazy to really keep up the practice. It's easy to say, I will watch TV instead. That's so much easier, so much more comfortable to do. But remember the class on making change happen. You already know how to build a habit. You already know what steps to take to make this change and set up this habit in your life. And if you decide to give mindfulness a try, definitely try to make it a habit. Just a few minutes a day and you will see where it goes. Rounding up this lecture, I want to stress again that the present moment is the only moment that we are ever alive in. And let's give it the attention it deserves.